selling properties, like the 120, 150
Yeah.
houses. Those sell quickly,
Yeah.
and you're able to pick them up with $30, $40, $50,000 equity. We had to respond to the marketplace and start teaching the flips.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been nice. And what people, a lot of people, the two biggest things I've seen is there's no new construction, so you've got a lack of competition, and then there's a lot of investors who are not in the market. I mean, that's the one thing I guess the recession has done is it's kind of cleaned the surface of some of the, you had so many at one time because of the financing, and what it's kind of done is kind of limited the competition as well.
The unsophisticated investor ran to the sidelines when
Right.
prices started dropping,
Right.
when in reality that's the time to continue to buy. It doesn't make any sense, but that is what happened, right?
Right. Great. Well, I know you're a big believer in not only becoming educated with real estate on a base of knowledge, but continuing to further your education.
Yes.
I think I've heard you say, life is a lifelong pursuit of education.
Yes.
For the new viewers who have not met you before, what would you say are the one or two top books that you guys refer lifestyles to? And then if you've got any other recent book or anyone that you've been reading or studying lately that you could.
One thing I want to agree with you on your point of, I do believe it's continued education. I love this phrase. This was taught to me not too long ago, believe it or not, but it was said that who you are 5 years from now will be a direct result of the people you meet and the books that you've read. And it's so true, because if you're not out there meeting new people, then it's just your normal ideas. You're rehashing your same old, same old. My favorite books, oddly enough, my #1 book for the real estate investor is not a real estate investor book. It's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. Then my second favorite is sort of a real estate investor book, and that's Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that those two books are foundational. Then there's The Richest Man in Babylon. There's Think and Grow Rich. You asked me about something I read just recently that's just compelling, is The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. The synopsis of the book is that major changes, big giant changes, come from little things. And I can't go much further into it for time's sake right now, but if people will read that, they'll understand how we're able to turn apartment complexes around. We're able to turn a $10 million apartment complex around with just $1 million. You say, but that's just 10%. That's right, but that 10% makes all the difference. It is the tipping point.
Right. Yeah, that comes to mind as some of the rehabs that we do, and they'll paint everything and maybe do light fixtures, but some people want to hold on to like this ugly tile because it's in really good shape, and that's just change their flooring, the house will rent, I promise. Yeah, that's funny. It's also funny that a lot of people call me about the same thing. Hey, what book should I read when I'm getting started? It's not always the real estate books that are that important. It's 7 Habits is a fantastic book, and I'm reading an autobiography on Warren Buffett right now.
Yes,
and
outstanding.
just those principles that he applies can be applied not only to business but other parts of your life, and it's those concepts that can be applied to any business. Yeah, that's great. Well, myself, I'm not a type of person where I can take a lot of downtime. I always have to be active, whether you're buying rental properties or flipping houses, running a business. I've got a wife and 3 kids, so always staying active. However, I've found like a 3-day kind of weekend getaway is great for just recharging the batteries, spending time away from the family, and when I find that when we take those little getaways, we're just so much more productive when we get back. Would you happen to be able to recommend if someone has a little 2 or 3 time where they can just kind of get away from the rat race? Because speaking of books, The 4-Hour Workweek is a book I love, and he talks about taking these long vagabonding vacations to Europe and all around the world, which I'm not in that position yet. So, but the importance of it is just kind of getting away, enjoying your life now, as opposed to when you're 60 or 70.
Yes.
And a lot of people's budgets and their time frames can't go on the long vagabonding trips. Is there anything that you could recommend if someone just get like a quick getaway?
My strategy is, while I don't want to recommend any particular space or place to go, I'd rather, if it's okay with you, just build on the fact that I agree with your 3-day strategy. What happens with Josie and I, and what has happened to me is, I've been to fancy places, I've been overseas, but nothing I saw or did overseas beat being with my wife and kids
Right.
right here in Houston, Texas, as
Right.
long as I had time to enjoy them.
Right.
I think it's really more important that you are with the people that you
Right.
love and care about than it is to be in a specifically cool place.
That's great. Right.
So that's what I focus on, is getting the quality time. And I know that used to be like the catchphrase of
Right.
all time, quality time, but I mean that.
Yeah.
Where you sit down with your son or daughter and you enjoy something, not trying to preach to them the whole time,
Right.
just enjoy something that they enjoy. Go boating, go kayaking, go running, do
Right.
something with your family during that 3-day period.
Right.
That's more important to me than any location that you
Right.
could possibly name.
Right. Right. That's a great point, and I've seen that with my own kids a lot of times. They just want your attention, time together. You put your cell phone down, just spend that time.
That's
together.
right.
That's a great point, because, you know, after all, steal your phrase, it's not about the money. It's about the lifestyle. It's about the quality of life, enjoying every moment, helping others. Well,
You bring up the 4-hour work week. I don't think you or I, based on what I know about you, but just a couple of the comments that you made, could go do one of those vagabond trips. I'd be bored senseless in a very short period.
I don't think I could, and honestly, I couldn't. And the idea of working only 4 hours a week doesn't really. Yeah, I know it's probably a marketing thing to sell the book,
Right.
but there's a lot of good concepts in there, because I personally kind of like the idea of never retiring, finding something that I enjoy, and, you know, helps others for the rest of my life, rather than doing when I'm 65, I'm going to retire and do nothing. I kind of like the idea of working until the day I die.
Life expectancy of a male who retires is 3 years in the U.S.
Yeah,
Retirement is not what it's cracked up to be.
I agree.
One of my lead mentors was 84 when he passed away, and he worked right up until he just couldn't, and
Sure.
that was probably 83.
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree. I used to be a police officer, and one of my lieutenants retired, and I was just out of college at the time. He died less than 4 weeks later.
Wow.
And you know, a lot of people in service in the police department, I'll just use that example, it was very common. People counting days, counting down years. I've got this year, and you know, I don't know the situation, but it stuck out in my mind. I mean, he worked his whole entire life, and then 4 weeks later. Yeah. Well, I don't want to end the interview on a downbeat like that.
Yeah, we better
So
say something positive.
let's end with something, just something brief that you could give to everyone. Because
Well, I do have something.
okay,
And that is just to encourage everyone to give this a shot.
Sure.
What people are doing is they're out there, and in their portfolios they have savings, they have stocks, they have mutual funds.
Right.
And guess what's missing? Blatantly obvious: real estate.
Right.
And what's happened is the financial planners won't talk about it because they don't get paid a commission on it. Some financial planners are told not to talk about
Right.
it or they'll get fired.
Right.
So American families need to understand that real estate is something that you can own. You can even use your IRA to buy real estate
Right.
without tax or penalty.
Right.
Get some real estate in your portfolio. Get it in there so that you understand what it's like to get that check in the mail
Right.
every month, that cash
Right.
flow every month. Then decide whether you want to do 30 houses or
Right.
3,300. It's
Right.
Then go from there. But
Right.
I encourage everyone to give real estate a shot. Get a mentor. Make sure you know what you're doing, but get out there and do it.
right. Steve, appreciate it. Give a little fist pump.
I appreciate it as well.
Appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope you have just enjoyed this interview and all just the great information and inspiration that Steve's given us. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate it,
Appreciate it,
and that was fun.